This morning, Steelers team president Art Rooney II addressed the media after head coach Mike Tomlin stepped down as the head man of the Pittsburgh Steelers after his 19-year tenure here in the Steel City. He gave his thoughts on the departure of Mike Tomlin and then also revealed the number one trait that he's going to be looking for in the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So make sure you guys stick around to see what that is. But before we get into my takeaways from Rooney's presser here today, there's a lot to discuss. He said a lot of interesting things. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because the search is officially on for the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And guys, at this point, there's more popes. We get more popes than we get Steelers head coaches. So this only happens once every 2 decades at this point, essentially. So obviously, this is going to be a historic offseason and a historic next 2 weeks for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to know everybody that they're bringing in for interviews, everybody that they're being linked to, we're going to get you guys daily updates on this channel. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for this very extensive and very historic Steelers head coaching search. All right, so we'll start here with Rooney's reflections on the Tomlin era, and he kind of just kept it kind of brief with this, and he kind of just said, what this era of Steelers football was all about was contending, and how under head coach Mike Tomlin in his 19 years here, this team was quote-unquote always in contention, and of course, Tomlin leaves the Steelers without ever having a losing season as the head coach of the Black and Gold. And then under Tomlin, they were always in contention, and quote-unquote, that's what matters. Now, a lot of fans, that are very frustrated with the 9-year playoff losing streak and all that different stuff, and 7 straight playoff losses is the way Mike Tomlin ends his tenure here in Pittsburgh. But, in one sense, I do agree with Art Rooney that, that the job of a head coach is to put their team in position to win in the playoffs, and you can make an argument Tomlin did that a number of times, and the players just didn't execute when they made it to the postseason. But you can also say, when you tied the all-time NFL record in, playoff games lost in a row, you can certainly say Tomlin had a hand in those playoff losses, and that's when it really matters. I kind of agree and disagree with that evaluation from Art Rooney, where I do think it was probably time to move on. Do think Mike Tomlin's a good head coach, but I also don't think that being in contention is quote-unquote all that matters. But another thing that I took away from this press conference here is that Art Rooney said he wasn't shocked that Mike decided to step away. He said in recent weeks he thought that Mike might be leaning towards leaving, and what he said is that he didn't want to speak for Mike, but he said that he got the sense that this was a family decision for Tomlin, where he didn't leave the team because he doesn't love football or he doesn't love coaching the Steelers necessarily. It's that he wanted to take a break after 19 straight years nonstop, one speed. Of course, we know Coach T is only one speed. He's always in on it. His family, and he wanted to take a little bit of a break before probably getting back into coaching in the near future. But after 19 years, Tomlin just felt like it was the right time to walk away. And then also, Rooney did confirm that Tomlin could have come back for a 20th season if he would have wanted to. He did reveal that he was expecting to put together a plan for the 2026 offseason with Mike Tomlin as the head coach. And, that's the way that it kind of went. So coming up here, Rooney did make some comments on the head coaching search, what he's going to be looking for, who it's not going to be. He did answer some of those questions, so we'll discuss what he said here in just a second. But But before we get into all that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Harry's. And guys, life is all about continual improvement, and that includes the quality of the products that we use every single day. Your phone is practically a supercomputer in your pocket. Cars can park and even drive themselves now. Your headphones cancel outside noise like magic. But your razor, likely it's still flimsy, overpriced, and still stuck back in 2008. That's where our friends at Harry's Plus come in. Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face, refined blade tech for a closer, smoother shave, and a weighted metal handle, which is Harry's heaviest handle ever for added control and comfort. It feels like an expensive shave without having to break the bank. With Harry's Plus, each blade is honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without tugging. Blade spacing is optimized to glide smoothly and avoid clogging, and every cartridge includes a lubricating strip with aloe and vitamin E to calm skin while you shave. But maybe the best part about Harry's Plus is how affordable it is. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany, no outsourcing, no middlemen, and because they control the entire process from steel to shelf, they keep costs low and pass the savings on to you. And if you don't love your shave with Harry's, they're going to make it right with you, no questions asked. Their risk-free trial means there's no reason not to give them a shot. So just to show you guys I actually use and love Harry's products. I've been using them since college, and that's why we're so happy to be partnering with them here on Steelers Talk. But I actually brought my Harry's Plus razor with me from home here today just to show you guys that I actually do use this product. And personally, I love the Harry's Plus razor because it comes with that weighted metal handle, and it's not that much more than their plastic products, but you get that extra premium feel with Harry's Plus. And I also love their shaving gel, and then also their post-shave balm that it smells terrific. And once again, these products do not break the bank, guys. If you want a barbershop quality shave without having to pay a fortune on refills and all the high quality products that are out there, for limited time only, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer, and after your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. A big thank you to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. So Art Rooney II did say that the coaching search will take weeks because of certain protocols in the National Football League. You have to interview a certain amount of minority coaches, the Rooney Rule, all that different stuff. So there's certain protocols in place that are going to prevent the Steelers from acting really quickly here. But I do expect interviews to begin this week for the Pittsburgh Steelers head coaching job. And now most teams nowadays do a second round of interviews. So we'll see, if the Steelers do one round or if they do 2 rounds. We'll just kind of have to see what Art Rooney and Omar Khan decide to do. They're going to be the ones that are heading up the head coaching search here in the weeks to come. But Rooney did also say that because he was kind of planning on Tomlin being back for next season, that he hasn't done a ton of prior research on the head coaching market. Now, there has been some reports out there that they have looked into Marcus Freeman and Chris Shula and some of these other guys that are going to be on the coaching market this year. But, according to him, at least, he hasn't done a ton of prior research, and he was planning on Mike Tomlin returning for a 20th season here in Pittsburgh. So he's going to have to get caught up to speed on the coaching market, as it were there. And then he also said that, the current staff members under the Mike Tomlin regime are not being considered for the head coaching position. So you can rest easy, Steelers fans. Arthur Smith is not going to be considered for the head coaching position here in Pittsburgh, at least according to Rooney's comments. It also means other guys like Terrell Austin, Eddie Faulkner, etc., are not going to get interviewed or be considered for this position. It will be an outside hire here in Pittsburgh, and I think that is absolutely the correct decision. Now, in terms of Art, he actually is getting some head coaching buzz around the league. He interviewed for the Tennessee Titans job, I believe it was today, and I think he's going to be interviewing with the Cardinals later this week. So he is getting a little bit of interest around the league, and I'm sure he's going to get an offensive coordinating job somewhere, even if he doesn't get those head coaching positions. And who knows, maybe even the new head coach here in Pittsburgh decides to keep Art on. I know Steelers fans won't want that, but that is still a possibility at this point. Rooney did say certain positional coaches and maybe even the coordinators could be brought on if that's what the new head coach wants to do, but he's giving full control to the new head coach to staff this new Steelers coaching staff the way that he wants. Now let's talk about the number one quality that Art Rooney is looking for in his new head coach, and he says that is leadership. This is what Rooney had to say about leadership and why it's so important for an NFL head coach. He says, I think there are a lot of things that go into being a successful head coach. Number one, really, I think in my mind is leadership and really trusting that this person can stand up in front of your team day in and day out and hold their attention and have them motivated to do what they do. So that's most important. And after, having, most of his tenure as team president with Mike Tomlin at head coach, one of the best motivators and best leaders of men in, I would argue, football history, he's certainly going to want to have that in his next head coach. And whoever steps into Mike Tomlin's meeting room next year, they've got very big shoes to fill, man. They got to be able to command the respect of the players in that locker room, hold their attention, because they're used to one of the greatest leaders in the history of the organization, leading this locker room. So that's going to have to be a really important quality for this next head coach. And if you're hoping for kind of a soft voice, soft-spoken, offensive guru type, like Clint Kubiak, for example, I'm not sure if that's going to be a fit here in Pittsburgh, all right? Clint is kind of known as somebody that's not really rah-rah, that's kind of quiet, keeps to himself, and, I'm not saying that, being rah-rah or anything like that is the number one thing, but, I do think being a leader in the locker room, holding the attention of the players, and being able to fill Mike Tomlin's shoes as a locker room leader is going to be an important factor to this search. If you're hoping for a guy like Clint Kubiak, where that's not really part of his profile as a coach. It's not necessarily saying Clint's a bad coach or anything like that, but I'm just not sure if he's the style of head coach that Art Rooney is looking for as he embarks on this new head coaching search. And usually the quote-unquote leader of men types are defensive guys. That's why this team has, traditionally hired defensive head coaches. I mean, Chuck Noll, obviously a great leader of men. Same thing goes for Bill Cowher, and then the same thing went for Mike Tomlin. So, if you're looking for that, guy with a lot of presence in that meeting room and in that locker room, that true leader, the alpha among alphas, you're probably going to be looking more into the defensive world, if I'm being completely honest here, guys. So I know a lot of people want an offensive guy. They want the opposite of Mike Tomlin, all this different stuff. But I'm just telling you right now, I think, the Pittsburgh Steelers would most likely go in the direction of a defensive-minded head coach as opposed to an offensive one. Also, Art Rooney said that there is no full-blown rebuild coming. He said he doesn't like that word because he wants to compete for a championship, or at least try to compete for a championship every single season. And that is kind of what defines the quote-unquote Steeler way, is that, this organization, they're going to put their best foot forward every single year. They're going to try and compete to win and try to contend for a championship every single year. Obviously, you're not going to be able to accomplish that, but that is the goal and that is the mission every single year here in Pittsburgh. So there's not going to be a full-scale fire sale, and they're not going to be tanking, and they're not going to be doing any of this stuff. I do think they're going to get younger. I want to make that abundantly clear. I think this new head coach that's coming in, and Omar Khan, they're going to want to get younger and embrace the future, but they're also going to try and win now. And I think that's going to be an important point that's made to these head coach candidates, is that we're not going to tank, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to try and win immediately with you coming in as our head coach. And that's got to be the mindset of the new head coach coming in here, is that it's a win now mentality here in Pittsburgh. And then also Rooney did confirm today that Aaron Rodgers is likely leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers. He said today that, Rodgers came to play for Mike Tomlin, and now that Tomlin's gone, unless, you hire like Matt LaFleur or something like that, somebody with a Rodgers connection, he's just not going to be interested in coming back to play another season here in Pittsburgh. And honestly, I think Rodgers is pretty content with what he did in Pittsburgh this year. Division championship, made the playoffs, got a season to work with Mike Tomlin, somebody that he's respected for a long time. I just think it makes sense for Rodgers to hang up the cleats at this point, and for the Steelers to embrace, a more long-term approach at quarterback as we approach the 2026 season. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Who's going to be the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do you think it's going to be an offensive guy, a defensive guy? Do you think they bring someone in from the college ranks? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. I think later today, guys, I'll probably have some more head coaching candidates for you guys. We'll probably put out a quarterback targets video as well in the coming days. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're just getting started here in the 2026 offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're kicking things off with a head coaching search. It's going to be followed by offensive and defensive coordinator searches. Of course, we got free agency coming. We got draft stuff coming. We got so much content coming your way this offseason here on Steelers Talk. So if you don't want to miss any of it, click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.